Caution, you are about to enter the no spin zone. The Factor begins right now. Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thank you for watching us tonight. Round 3 with President Bush. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. With his poll numbers down and a crescendo of criticism directed his way, President Bush wants to tell you a few things. So this morning, we were invited to the White House to speak with him. This is my 3rd interview with the president. He does get a fair shake here, but he also gets tough questions, as everybody does. Now, interviewing a president is not like interviewing anyone else on the planet. You cannot be confrontational with the President of the United States. You can be direct, but you can't be disrespectful. Over the next 3 nights, President Bush will have his say. Because every presidential interview is finite, that is, time is always a concern, I decided to concentrate on the conflicts: Iraq, Iran, North Korea, and terror, rather than on domestic issues. Also, I think it's important to look ahead rather than to look back. What good does it do to rehash WMDs? Does that do you any good? So the questions are about what's happening now and whether we are winning or losing the high-stakes battles we are fighting.
Fox News military analysts say Iran now is behind the insurgency in Iraq to a large extent. The war has morphed, it's shifted, and that U.S. forces are now fighting, an insurgency fueled by Iran. Is that true?
I think the enemy is more complex than that. We are concerned about some Iranian involvement, particularly in the delivery of certain kind of weapons, but the violence that the American people see on their screens is some sectarianism, some criminal activity, and Al-Qaeda. And we're dealing with all 3. And the strategy in Iraq, or the tactics in Iraq, is changing constantly. And so obviously, if we see more Iranian involvement, we'll adjust our tactics to meet that threat.
This month, very bloody month for U.S. troops.
Yeah.
Can any country stop people from killing each other, Shiites, Sunnis? Can any country stop that?
If the definition of success is no violence, it's hardly any society will be able to meet that. We believe, however, our goal, by the way, is an Iraq that can defend itself, sustain itself, govern itself, and is an ally in the war on terror. And that goal is achievable with a combination of both tough security measures by the U.S. coalition and Iraqi forces, and a political process that recognizes that 15 million people want a unity government.
But if you continue to have insurgents blowing up buildings and kidnapping people, you can't police that insurgency. It's impossible. You have to get the insurgents to stop.
No question about it, and that's why there needs to be a political process that says Sunni and Shia will participate in a new government, in a new country.
But why should we be, after 3.5 years, encouraged that will happen?
Well, because it was about 6 months ago that we had elections where 12 million people said we want it to happen.
Just because they want it doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Well, it can happen if we continue. Look, the alternative is to say it's not worth it, let's leave. In other words, ignore the fact that 12 million people voted, ignore the fact they got a constitution, ignore the fact they got a unity government, and say we leave. And that's not going to work.
How about dividing into 3? Kurds autonomous region, Sunni autonomous, Shia autonomous, and pay them oil revenues to stop killing each other.
I don't think that's the right way to go. I think that'll increase sectarian violence. I think that'll make it more dangerous. And so does Prime Minister Maliki, with whom I spoke today. I had an interesting conversation with him. I said, we expect you to make tough political decisions to move forward.
50% of Americans are now against the Iraq war. Why?
Because they want us to win. They believe, they're wondering whether or not we have the plans in place to win. They want to know whether or not we have the flexibility on the ground to constantly meet the enemy. And I can understand why there's frustration. Because the enemy knows that killing innocent people will create a sense of frustration. And they know that they know America. They know that we're a conscious-driven people that value life. And the more people they destroy, the more innocent lives that are destroyed, the more likely it is we'll retreat in their way of thinking. This is what Osama bin Laden and Zawahiri have plainly stated, that it's just a matter of time before America loses her nerve and leaves.
There's one other reason they've turned against the war in Iraq, is that the anti-Bush press pounds day in and day out in the newspapers, on the network news, in books like Bob Woodward's, that you don't know what you're doing there. You have no strategy, you don't listen to dissent, you've got this thing in your mind, and you're stubborn, and you just can't win it.
Well, I'm disappointed that people would propagandize to that effect, because the stakes are too high for that kind of illogical behavior. We have got a plan. We've got first of all a stated goal, and I have said to our commanders on the ground, you achieve that goal, and we'll give you the tools necessary to do it.
Why doesn't Russia, France, China see it your way? If they would help the United States, particularly with Iran, and if they would help inside Iraq, we'd win this thing very quickly.
Well,
France, Russia, and China do not help here. Why not?
I think they will help with Iran in terms of the Iranians ending up with a nuclear weapon.
Tough, though.
Well,
it's not easy. It's not like they want to help. They're jumping on the,
No, I think I actually would give them more credit than you are, from my perspective. I had a good talk with Vladimir Putin the other day about the Iranian issue. And he knows full well that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Those weapons can fly west, or they could fly north. And he's fully aware of the threat of Iran.
Then why are they selling them all kinds of weaponry? I mean, they're killing our people in Iraq. They're sending those weapons over. They're sending bombs to Iraq, and Putin's arming them. Why is Putin arming them?
Well, I don't think he is arming Iran to the point where they're using a lot of Russian weapons in the theater. There were a lot of Russian weapons in Iraq before we even got there.
Why won't the United States talk to North Korea one-on-one?
We tried that, and it didn't work.
You're talking about the Clinton stuff?
Well, what I'm saying is that there was a kind of a good faith effort made to engage North Korea and try to convince them in a bilateral way to give up their weapons programs. There was an agreement made, and they didn't honor the agreement. And so I decided that since that didn't work, we ought to try another way forward in order to solve this problem peacefully, and that is to have China at the table, and South Korea at the table, and Japan at the table, and Russia at the table. My attitude is real simple on this. More voices saying the same thing to North Korea makes it more likely we'll be able to solve this issue peacefully.
One of the negotiators in the '94 agreement, the President Clinton agreement with North Korea, which you just referred to, they didn't live up to. I just want to make it clear that's what you're referring to.
Yes, I am.
Okay. It was Jimmy Carter. And Jimmy Carter last week in the New York Times says Bush administration is screwing up because they won't talk to him one-on-one.
Yeah, I just disagree with him. I think it is a much more effective policy to have China using her leverage, South Korea using its leverage, Japan using its leverage, to say to the North Koreans, give up your weapons program.
China says it's not going to inspect. You know, you got the UN mandate, and everybody was happy for about 10 minutes, and then China says, well, yeah, okay, we're on board with the mandate, but we're not going to inspect.
Condi Rice is going out to the Far East.
Why would they do that?
Well, I haven't seen the comments. You know, sometimes there are, different levels of, government saying things. Bill, you know what? I mean, I'm sure they look at the United States government here.
You're saying there are not no spin guys over there in China?
I think there may be some spin guys over there in China. As I understand it, and I'm going to learn more about exactly what their complaints are. First of all, I usually don't react to the first comments coming out of a government source. I do know that the Chinese are deeply concerned about North Korea having a nuclear weapon. I know they're concerned about the statement that came out of Japan today that said Japan is now rethinking its position on nuclear weapons.
Japan and China historically hate each other. But maybe I'm wrong on this, but it looks like in Iran and North Korea that both Russia and China want the USA to be weakened.
I don't think so. I strongly disagree with that. Yeah, I think you're wrong on that. And as a matter of fact, I'm pretty confident you're wrong. China and the United States share the same objective. They understand the stakes of North Korea having a nuclear weapon.
Ever think about this North Korean leader? Is he just insane?
We will see. We will see as he reaches more decision points.
Have you ever spoken with him?
No, I haven't.
Any of your crew ever spoken with him?
No, sir.